There's a spiritual practice that has quietly invaded thousands of churches across America, and most pastors have no idea they're leading their congregation into something that comes straight from the occult. You've probably seen it at women's retreats, small groups, or recommended by Christian influencers you trust. It promises self-discovery, better relationships, and even spiritual growth. But here's what they don't tell you. This practice didn't come from the Bible, it didn't come from church history, and it certainly didn't come from God. Today we're exposing the Enneagram and revealing 5 shocking truths that will make you understand why this occult tool has no place in Christianity. And before we dive in, let me know in the comments what country you're watching from. I love connecting with believers from around the world. Now let's start with the first shocking truth about where this deceptive practice really came from. The Enneagram symbol that you see plastered all over Christian Instagram accounts and conference materials didn't start in a church or seminary. It began with a Russian mystic named George Gurdjieff in the early 1900s, who was deeply involved in occult practices. This man traveled across Asia studying Sufism, ancient mysticism, and esoteric numerology, claiming to have discovered secret spiritual knowledge that had been hidden for centuries. He believed that this 9-pointed symbol could unlock hidden aspects of human consciousness and provide access to higher spiritual realms, concepts that are fundamentally opposed to biblical Christianity. What makes this even more disturbing is that Gurdjieff openly taught that traditional religion was merely a stepping stone to higher mystical experiences, and he promoted the idea that people needed to transcend conventional faith to reach true enlightenment. The foundation of the Enneagram is built on the teachings of a man who rejected biblical Christianity in favor of mystical occultism, yet somehow today's church leaders are promoting it as a tool for Christian growth. Gurdjieff would be shocked to see his occult symbol being used in churches, because he never intended it to support biblical faith. He designed it to replace it. 1 Timothy 4:1 warns that in later times, some will abandon the faith and follow deceiving spirits and things taught by demons, and the widespread acceptance of Gurdjieff's mystical system in Christian circles should alarm every biblical believer. But if you think George Gurdjieff's occult foundation is concerning, wait until you discover how his student took these teachings to an even darker level through direct spirit communication. While Gurdjieff laid the mystical foundation, it was his student Oscar Ichazo who developed what we now recognize as the modern Enneagram personality system, and how he received this information should terrify every Christian. In the 1960s, Ichazo claimed to have received detailed knowledge about the 9 personality types through direct communication with spirit beings he called the Eternals. These weren't biblical angels or divine revelations. These were supernatural entities that provided him with intricate details about human psychology and spiritual transformation through methods that explicitly contradict Scripture. What's even more shocking is that Ichazo admitted these revelations came to him while he was under the influence of psychedelic drugs, deliberately altering his consciousness to open himself to spiritual communication. The information that forms the basis of today's Enneagram personality descriptions came through what the Bible clearly identifies as divination and mediumship. Ichazo didn't study human behavior or conduct psychological research. He channeled information from spirit guides who claimed to possess ancient wisdom about human nature. Deuteronomy 18:10-12 explicitly forbids consulting mediums or seeking information from spiritual entities, stating that anyone who does these things is detestable to the Lord. Yet millions of Christians are now basing their understanding of personality and relationships on information that was literally channeled from demonic sources through drug-induced spiritual sessions. But the story gets even darker when you discover how Ichazo's student took this spirit-channeled information and developed it into something that would deceive millions more Christians. Just when you think the Enneagram's occult roots couldn't get any darker, along comes Claudio Naranjo, a Chilean psychiatrist who studied under Ichazo and expanded the personality system that Christians now use in their churches. But here's what should shock every believer. In a 2010 interview, Naranjo openly confessed that much of his detailed Enneagram knowledge came through automatic writing, one of the most dangerous occult practices explicitly forbidden in Scripture. Automatic writing involves entering a trance-like state, and allowing supernatural entities to control your hand to write messages, providing information that the conscious mind doesn't know or understand. This isn't psychological insight or research-based knowledge. This is literal demon channeling disguised as personality assessment. What's even more concerning is the specific content that Naranjo claims he received through this automatic writing. The detailed descriptions of the 9 types, their core motivations, their spiritual paths, and their psychological patterns. All of this information that Christians now use to understand themselves and their relationships came directly from supernatural entities through forbidden occult communication. Isaiah 8:19 asks, "When someone tells you to consult mediums and spiritists, who whisper and mutter, should not a people inquire of their God? Why consult the dead on behalf of the living?" The most shocking part is that he made this confession in 2010, decades after the Enneagram had already infiltrated Christian churches and seminaries around the world. But the most heartbreaking part of this deception is still coming. Wait until you see how one influential Christian leader took this occult system and successfully convinced the entire evangelical world that it was somehow biblical. The reason millions of sincere Christians have fallen for this occult deception comes down to one man's dangerous decision in 1991. Franciscan priest Richard Rohr published The Enneagram, A Christian Perspective, and successfully convinced evangelical leaders that this spirit-channeled system could somehow be redeemed for Christian use. Rohr took Gurdjieff's mystical symbol, Ichazo's spirit guide revelations, and Naranjo's demon-channeled personality descriptions, and wrapped them in Christian language, creating what appeared to be a legitimate spiritual growth tool. But here's the critical question every believer needs to ask. Can something that originates from occult sources ever be made holy through Christian rebranding? Scripture gives us a clear answer in 1 Chronicles 10:13-14, where King Saul died because he was unfaithful to the Lord, and consulted a medium for guidance and did not inquire of the Lord. The most tragic aspect of Rohr's Christianization of the Enneagram is how it opened the floodgates for other occult practices to enter the church under the guise of spiritual formation. Once church leaders accepted that ancient mystical traditions could be redeemed for Christian use, the door was opened for contemplative prayer, labyrinth walking, and other practices rooted in non-Christian spirituality. Rohr's book became the gateway drug that convinced evangelical leaders to embrace mystical traditions that previous generations of Christians had rightfully rejected as incompatible with biblical faith. What started as a personality tool quickly became a comprehensive spiritual formation system that has led countless Christians away from the sufficiency of Scripture and toward mystical experiences and inner transformation techniques. But the most heartbreaking reality is still ahead. You won't believe how many Christians are defending this occult practice, even after learning its true origins. Even after learning about the Enneagram's occult origins through Gurdjieff's mysticism, Ichazo's spirit guides, Naranjo's automatic writing, and Rohr's dangerous rebranding, many Christians still defend this practice with 3 common arguments that reveal how deeply deception can penetrate the church. The first excuse is, it's just a tool. But this completely ignores the biblical principle that the source of spiritual practices matters to God. When King Saul consulted a medium, he wasn't worshiping demons or rejecting God entirely. He was just using a forbidden tool to get guidance, yet 1 Chronicles 10:13-14 tells us this resulted in his death. The second excuse is, all truth is God's truth, a dangerous half-truth that opens the door to any spiritual practice as long as it provides helpful insights, completely ignoring Colossians 2:8, which warns against being taken captive through hollow and deceptive philosophy, which depends on human tradition and the elemental spiritual forces of this world, rather than on Christ. The third and most concerning excuse is, I only use it for personality, not spirituality, as if you can somehow separate an occult practice from its spiritual foundation. This is like saying you can practice astrology for personality insights while ignoring its mystical beliefs, or use tarot cards for psychological reflection while avoiding their occult purpose. 2 Corinthians 6:14-16 asks, what do righteousness and wickedness have in common? Or what fellowship can light have with darkness? You cannot strip away the occult roots from a practice that was literally designed to provide spiritual transformation through communication with demonic entities. The very personality descriptions that Christians find so helpful came through automatic writing and spirit channeling. Every time you identify with your Enneagram type, you're embracing information that demons provided about human nature. This isn't neutral personality assessment. It's a Trojan horse that's bringing occult thinking directly into the heart of Christian discipleship and spiritual formation. These 5 shocking truths reveal why the Enneagram has no place in biblical Christianity. It's built on mysticism, developed through spirit guides, expanded through demon channeling, rebranded by a mystic, and defended by Christians who've been deceived into thinking occult practices can be Christianized. Your identity and transformation don't come from a spirit-channeled personality system. They come from Jesus Christ and His Word alone. If this video opened your eyes to the truth about the Enneagram, smash that like button and share it with every Christian you know who needs to see this. Subscribe and hit the bell so you won't miss our next expose on dangerous practices infiltrating the church. Let me know in the comments. Have you or your church used the Enneagram, and will you be walking away from it after learning these truths? Your eternal destiny is too important to risk on occult deceptions disguised as Christian tools.